All right, raw video from the officer's cell phone tells the real story in Minneapolis. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Happy Friday to you. The left's narrative of Renee Good as the victim of a murder by an ICE agent, a woman who's been now dubbed an anti-ICE warrior by her own friends, that narrative is collapsing. Cell phone video taken by the agent himself, who opened fire, as he opened fire, has already been released. They're out for transparency. You know what that usually means. The officer clearly in front of the hood in his video when professional ICE agitator Renee Good slammed on the gas, being cheered on to drive, baby, drive by her own wife, who was on the other side of that SUV. Here was the moment. We're going to play it for you in full.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. It's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen. Damn it. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I said go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Oh!
And with that, you see exactly what happened from the perspective of the man that it happened to. And with that also, it would seem case closed. After a full day of antagonizing and blocking ICE from doing their job, committing multiple illegal acts, a ton of restraint from ICE all day long, Renee Good's wife tells her to drive, baby, drive. And Renee was senseless enough to slam the gas pedal, a 5,000-pound SUV with a federal officer right in front of her hood. These two had been playing a very stupid game for weeks, it appears. Taunting ICE, agitating, irritating, interfering. And if you're going to play a game like that, you better make sure you make no mistakes. And Renee made a very big mistake this week, and she died for a completely senseless reason, defying basic immigration laws that every country in the world follows. An unemployed woman pretending that deporting illegal immigrants is fascism so she could justify obstructing federal agents to give her life some kind of a purpose. Brainwashed by Democrats who've indoctrinated their voters with the idea that the wealthiest country in the world should be a borderless welfare state. A plan to import millions and stay in power, despite a political agenda that decimates the quality of life for actual Americans. That's what Democrats did. That's what they've brainwashed these Americans into believing, the ones that are out there fighting ICE.
ICE is looking more and more like an American Gestapo.
They've seen the kind of fascist ICE Gestapo militias go round up Latino American citizens.
We've got these masked thug cowards kidnapping innocent people and sending them off to be slaves or tortured in other countries.
Secret police who are masked, who are intimidating, who are scaring people.
Yeah. It's all propaganda. It's all for the benefit of the Democrat Party. It's all very obvious. And a woman died because of it. As the investigation launches, it's clear there's no need to conceal any evidence, right? It's all already been made public. It's all out there. Several different angles of the same exact moment. I've seen it from at least 5 different angles, including now from the officer himself, from the phone he was carrying in his other hand as he opened fire. Yet the incompetent thieves who run the state of Minnesota are now demanding the FBI share evidence, as if it's not already all out there, as they conspire to throw yet another innocent cop in prison. The president had this to say about that.
Do you believe that the FBI should be sharing evidence with state officials in Minnesota?
Well, normally I would, but they're crooked officials. I mean, Minneapolis and Minnesota, what a beautiful place, but it's being destroyed. It's got an incompetent governor, fool. I mean, he's a stupid person. And it looks like the number could be $19 billion stolen from a lot of people, but largely people from Somalia. They buy their vote. They vote in a group. The whole thing is ridiculous. So they're very corrupt people. It's a very corrupt state.
It certainly is. Corrupt Attorney General Keith Ellison is now asking citizens to send their videos from the scene. Again, all of these videos are already out there. The last time the state of Minnesota needed a second autopsy to convict a cop of murder, you wonder what they're going to try to pull on this one. They've already begun totally poisoning the jury pool with just flagrant lies yet again. Take a look.
I don't know a lot about her. What I do know is that she's a victim and doesn't appear to doing anything wrong. She went through a 2 to 3 point turn, clearly trying to leave the vicinity where the ICE agents were located. And you've got this narrative that is coming out of this Trump administration that the victim was a domestic terrorist. That's a load of.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And it honestly should be illegal to poison the jury pool the way they're trying to do now, because they're going to sit on TV and say this stuff for months and months and months, and they're going to get this officer indicted. That's the plan. And then they'll get him convicted. That's exactly what they have up their sleeve. That's what they're going to try and do. She had basically devoted herself to obstructing law enforcement, Renee Good. That's all she did. That's what a domestic terrorist is. That's exactly what it is. But sure, we're going to all pretend that she was in the park feeding birds when ICE just walked up and shot her in the head. If you recall, Minneapolis's corrupt mayor, Jacob Frey, made big headlines for dropping the F-bomb. He just said BS a second ago. He dropped the F-bomb during a press conference demanding that ICE leave his city a couple of days ago. Because, again, this is all just theater. And that tactic, saying the F word on national TV at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, got Jacob Frey a lot of attention. It got him on CNN that night, which is his big goal, right? So naturally, Minnesota's Democrat Senator Tina Smith's team decided that she, too, should start dropping the F-bomb while she discusses this story.
Why do you think the Trump administration is so fixated on Minnesota right now?
Well, I wish I knew. I mean, I wish they would just leave us alone. I mean, seriously. Meanwhile, a woman died being shot in her car, and everything that they're doing is making it worse and not better.
By the way, why is the Trump administration so fixated on Minnesota right now? Do you have to even ask that question? And the fact that the senator pretends like she doesn't know, it's because, ma'am, your state is a laughingstock. It's a humiliation to the rest of the country. And you're the senator from there, and you know that. The memo on the F-bomb also went out to Eric Swalwell, of course, all the way in California. Who is it again, he said? Is it what, Renee Good? That's her name? F-bomb? Okay, got it.
I guess you're lucky now if all that happens is you're thrown in the back of a van or you're dragged by your hair through the streets, because now they're just shooting people in the face and bodies are piling up. And we have to do something about it. We're not helpless. To ICE, my message is stay the out of California.
Ooh, Swalwell's so tough. Ooh. If only Americans realized that everything these people do is just a calculus and they couldn't care less about any of the people that they talk about. It is a decision made by several political actuaries behind the scenes. Yes, Congressman, this is a pretty big moment. We'd like you to use the F word tonight. It'll be great for your approval rating. Oh, okay, great, sounds good. What's her name again? Why am I angry? It's all theater. It's all theater with really ugly actors. Speaking of which, here was Rachel Maddow last night with Jimmy Kimmel.
The key is nonviolent protest. And this woman who got shot in Minneapolis, this mom, you know, she was not doing anything violent. Had she been trying to drive into those federal agents, she would have steered toward them, not away from them.
Nonviolent protest is standing on the sidewalk with a sign. It's not chasing ICE with your SUV all day long and parking diagonal across a roadway to block them from removing criminals from your city. That's not a nonviolent protest. And then ignoring orders and flooring it when you're about to be arrested for clearly breaking the law when you have an officer right in front of your car. Now, potentially, she didn't want to hit that officer, but she still had an officer right in front of her car and she floored the gas. The SUV is immediately a lethal weapon in that moment. It's as simple as that. And again, when you play a very dangerous game, you can't make mistakes, and she made a big mistake. And there's just unquestionably, there's no doubt. He was standing in front of the vehicle, and she floored the gas. As a guy that was just dragged 6 months ago, can you blame him for wondering what's about to happen? People ramming their cars into ICE agents all day long in this country. Can you blame him? Again, she played a very stupid game. She wasn't smart enough to realize that this is a pretty sensitive little moment she was in. And her idiot wife said, "Drive, baby, drive." Only on ABC's Jimmy Kimmel could she possibly get away, Rachel Maddow, with claiming that the officer was not in front of the SUV. Laughable propaganda, as always. Vilify any kind of immigration controls in this country so that we can continue moving toward full open borders, which will be followed swiftly by socialist policies and a massive government takeover of the private sector. That's what this is all about. They have to stop ICE from kicking all of these people out of the country because they spent so much political capital to get them into this country. And so they're using these people as pawns. Washington, D.C. wants this country to go socialist. Imagine how rich the swamp would get if suddenly D.C. controlled something like $20 trillion a year instead of only $7 trillion. That's the goal. That's why they dumped all these people into your country. That's why this is all happening. People like Renee Good and her wife are just pawns to all of this, too stupid to realize what they're doing and the actual agenda that they are fighting for. Royce White is a Minnesota Senate candidate. Alex Marlow, the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. Gentlemen, good to have you both here. Alex, this country has a rich history of protest for very valid causes, going back a long time, which has been glamorized in this country and Hollywoodized. We've made a lot of movies about, 50, 75, 100 years ago and what we protested. Today, in this remarkably free and egalitarian society that we're so fortunate to have, I think we're finding that the left is very desperate to manufacture some semblance of oppression so that they now have something to fight for in 2026 because they need a fight, because it's so romantic. And I think that's how we end up with people this psychotic over immigration policy and dying in Minneapolis. What do you think?
You are so right about that. I was thinking about how Renee Good would have been alive if there hadn't been a Somali fraud ring defrauding the American people. That's what she was protesting on behalf of, Somali fraudsters who came here to bilk the taxpayers of this country. And because Donald Trump is the one who's cracking down on them now, then it must be wrong to crack down on the Somali fraudsters. And she's protesting on their behalf. Truly insane stuff. And what I pulled out of your monologue there, Rob, which is interesting, is why should Trump trust the people who was on their watch, all that fraud happened, to be a part of the investigation? That's like the ultimate, internal investigation for, sexual assault. We were seeing from all these TV networks, and then it come back, no, we were clean the whole time. Yeah, you're investigating yourself. Tim Walz has no business being near any sort of an investigation.
No.
Of course, you're right. A car is a weapon. She was confident, she was joyful, and she was enthusiastic and willing to be martyred for her cause.
Well said. Royce, go ahead.
What really troubles me is the cognitive dissonance. And I posted a video earlier on X of Barack Obama with what could now only be described as far-right fascist immigration policy back in his 2008 presidential campaign. And the mainstream media, the liberal media specifically, is so good at propaganda and completely, just creating the truth out of thin air for whatever political agenda they have. They've brainwashed a lot of these people into believing that we should, in fact, let anybody come live in this country. And it's one of the most preposterous things that I could possibly imagine. It's tragic that so many people in our country have bought into that propaganda, and that this woman had to lose her life because she believes something that's completely unreasonable, really.
A pawn for the Democrat Party. I got a packed show tonight. I got to leave it there. But, gentlemen, good to have you both here. Alex Marlow, Royce White, good to see you guys. President Trump slashes America's trade deficit to the lowest point since 2009. This is an impressive story coming up. The Atlanta Fed predicting an insane GDP in the fourth quarter of last year. Also, big oil at the White House. All of that coming up next with Trump's senior counselor for trade and manufacturing, Peter Navarro.
Here we go again. Everyone wants to know. So here it is.
Melania, rated PG, exclusively in theaters January 30th.
This new year only, get 50% off for 1 year when you subscribe to the Whole Health System as a preferred customer. Because the best New Year's resolutions are the easiest ones. Go to balanceofnature.com today.
On day one of my new administration, we're going to throw out Bidenomics and we're going to replace it with Maganomics.
Buckle up. This is unreal, the movement in this number. Minus $29.4 billion. We cut it basically in half.
Always good TV. CNBC's Rick Santelli going ballistic this week. Trump's tariffs slashing our trade deficit to its lowest point in nearly 2 decades. It's really impressive. These are the stories that most Americans never pay attention to, the actual work of improving the country for the American people that actually makes your life better, but seems to rarely register in how Americans vote. But it doesn't mean it's not important. Take a listen.
Deficits cut way, way, way back at levels that nobody's ever seen before, setting records. The numbers coming into our country are unprecedented, and we're doing really well.
Unemployment ticked down in December, 4.4%. U.S. economy adding 50,000 jobs. But the big story, the Atlanta Fed estimating the GDP of the fourth quarter is going to be at 5.4%, which is an absurdly huge number. Peter Navarro is the senior counsel for trade and manufacturing at the White House, joins us now. Peter, how did you guys get 5.4?
Just keep telling us the good news there. It just goes. Look, it's Maganomics. I like to call it Trumpnomics, but if the boss wants to call it Maganomics, all good. Let's start with the trade deficit. Here's the thing, Rob. Imports down, exports up. Best number since 2009. And here's your rule of thumb. For every $1 billion we reduce in the trade deficit, it's 6,000 new jobs or jobs that we create or protect. That's a big deal. And so the trends are our way. This shows what happens when you have a president who doesn't let the world cheat you anymore. Now, with respect to the growth rate, that's driven by a number of drivers. I mean, one of the things that's happening right now is this huge multi-trillion-dollar influx of investment, not just from foreign companies, but also domestically in response foreign to the tariffs, domestically to the tax bill, which is giving you 100% depreciation, so that there's a total investment boom coming on, construction boom. So, look, I think 2026 is going to be a great year. I remember at the bottom of the panic in April 7th, Rob, of this year.
Yeah, right.
When the stock market, the Dow went down to like 38,000, people were going, oh, tariffs. I said, no, relax. 50,000 on the Dow, no problem. We're at 49,000 now. I'm getting ready to take a victory lap, and I was the only person talking at that time.
And there's, I mean, you see so many articles out there about how, you know, the experts are getting it wrong. That they didn't call it. That they were wrong yet again, and you guys somehow were right. I mean, it is an amazing story. I want to ask you before I let you go about tariffs here. The Supreme Court, we thought maybe would rule today. It might happen next week on the legality of Trump's tariffs, which obviously there's a lot of great headlines about this story right now. The question whether or not the administration can use provisions under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to levy these tariffs. What happens if they rule against you guys?
Well, the decision's written. They just haven't released it. Usually the first day out, they give you like some news. We have plan B, C, and D. America's going to be fine. But it would be a lot better for this country if the Supreme Court acknowledges what is true, that the law perfectly supports President Trump. And look, you asked me that question in the same segment. You're saying the trade deficit has fallen the lowest since 2009. Yeah. It's jobs, investment. And by the way, when we bring our supply chains home, Rob, we strengthen not just our manufacturing base, but our defense industrial base and make us more secure. So all of this is working. And don't forget, we inherited like $75, $80 a barrel oil from Biden. It's down to $50 now. That's a huge growth driver as well as bringing inflation down. Everything that Donald Trump does cures inflation. Everything that they did caused inflation. And that's our mantra. And we just got to get that message across. Really good news, by the way, for housing. President Trump did $200 million on the mortgage mortgage-backed securities that we're buying. That's going to lower mortgage rates by a half or a quarter point, which is really good. And he is going to announce the full plan, ban on institutional investors buying single-family homes.
We're getting into all that right now here. Okay.
Too much news.
Peter, there is too much news.
Keep doing what you're doing,
Peter
brother.
Navarro, thank you, brother. We appreciate it. Have a good weekend. So after about 5 years now of skyrocketing home prices, doubling, tripling in some cases in some places, the president out with a plan to keep more inventory in the hands of actual homeowners, announcing he's moving to ban large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. He wants Congress to codify this. It's going to be something that's so popular with the American people, I imagine that they will, declaring that people live in homes, not corporations. Hundreds of thousands of homes in this country, at the very least, are owned by massive corporations that simply buy them up and rent them back to the American people. The U.S. Federal Housing Director, Bill Pulte, joins us now to talk about this. It's good to see you again, sir. What impact do you expect this will have if this move is codified by Congress and implemented?
Well, I think the president's going to take some executive action, Rob, and then I think shortly thereafter it'll be codified by Congress. I think it'll be a huge deal. I think you couple that with some of the housing announcements that the president's going to make in the next, let's call it, couple weeks at Davos. I think that's going to be very important to reversing what happened these last 4 years under Joe Biden. Nobody could afford a home, Rob, these last 4 years. It's absolutely totally crazy. And finally today we're seeing mortgage rates get down into the 5% range, a 5 handle on the 30-year mortgage. It's great.
I still try to figure out how. I mean, in 2020, before COVID hit, you know, a house cost a certain amount of money and you could get it for 2.5%, 3% on the mortgage. And then that price effectively doubled, and the mortgage rates also doubled or tripled in some cases. And I don't understand how these homes have been bought up. I guess everybody's just leveraged to the absolute max. But what all happened that led to the explosion in home prices in this country? How did that just occur the way it did, and how has that not come down?
Well, a big function of that, Rob, to your point, is inflation. Joe Biden had this crazy inflation for the last 4 years. When you have inflation, guess what goes up in a big way? Housing. Housing inflation has been totally out of control. And, you know, it's resulted in net worth for people, which obviously President Trump doesn't want to hurt. But at the same time, it's made it unattainable. That coupled with the mortgage rates and the mortgage interest payments. Yeah. You know, Rob, when you go to buy a home, as you know, you have a down payment and then you have your monthly payment. And so under President Biden, you know, you had these costs go up significantly. Nobody could afford it. And so now we're hopefully, once we get wages under control, which the president has gotten people earning again, and then you start to get some of the, let's call it, better home prices and maybe to some extent more affordable ability to buy a home, keep it, retain it. I think we're on our way.
Yeah, I hope so. We got to help the younger generation be able to afford a home. It's so integral to the American experience to be able to buy your house and to own a piece of this country. I got one quick final question for you. Trump calling on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to buy $200 billion in mortgage bonds as part of a separate effort to lower housing prices. What exactly does that do?
Well, it's a very big deal, Rob. You know, not only do you have the institutional ban on home buying, but you now have a situation where you have a president who's using $200 billion as his administration to potentially lower mortgage rates. And we've seen, Rob, since yesterday, the mortgage bond market closed about 6.2% on the 30-year. We're already seeing that at 5.875% today. Wow. That's a huge deal, Rob. I mean, mortgage rates under Biden were almost at 8%, and now President Trump is delivering 5.875%. This is a big deal. You get the 1-2 punch this week, and stay tuned for Davos. It's going to be pretty exciting.
Do you think we get into the 4s at some point? I think people would. That would certainly help, because so much of that home price is going to interest.
We'll see. You know, the problem with Biden was inflation went up so much, debt went up so much, that there's so much work to be done that, frankly, I think it's a miracle that we even have a 5 handle on the mortgage. Yeah. So stay tuned. We're going to be doing everything we can to fix it.
All right. Bill Pulte from the White House. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, and tonight the mullahs and the Ayatollah are terrified. Mass protests in the streets. There is an uprising happening in Iran we've never seen before, and Trump leveling a very serious threat against the government if they try to retaliate. All that is next.
If you have wet AMD or DME, you never want to lose sight of the things you love. And your condition doesn't have to steal the moment. Long-lasting Elica HD delivers powerful vision improvements that can save your vision for the future. Elica HD is the only treatment for wet AMD and DME that helped at least 8 out of 10 people go up to 4 months between injections after 3 initial monthly treatments. Don't take Elica HD if you have an eye infection, eye pain, redness, or are allergic to it. Eye injections like Elica HD may cause eye infection, separation of the retina, rare but severe swelling of blood vessels in the eye, or increased eye pressure. There is an uncommon risk of heart attack or stroke. There's still so much to see. Ask about next generation Elica HD, a treatment retina specialists trust.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone. I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our Restoration Guarantee and $1 Million Protection Package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
Ring in the new year with a kitchen designed to wow. Explore our quality kitchen cabinet collections to find the well-crafted style you want for less with 0% APR for 48 months. Hurry, offer ends soon. Only at Cabinets to Go. Designed to wow.
Iran's in big trouble. It looks to me that the people are taking over certain cities that nobody thought were really possible. We're watching the situation very carefully. I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts. And that doesn't mean boots on the ground, but it means hitting them very, very hard where it hurts.
You already hit them pretty hard not too long ago. Tonight, the mullahs in Iran are certainly nervous. The Ayatollah is considering fleeing. Economic turmoil, a disaster. It's a terribly run country for the last 50 years, and it has led to nearly 2 weeks of mass protests. There are millions in the streets, we understand, some setting vehicles on fire, igniting a statue of the supreme leader, the Ayatollah, this ridiculous country, screaming for democracy and an end to decades of Islamic theocracy. These people are fighting hard to get rid of the government in a nation that's been run by Neanderthals. Despite President Trump's warning to Iran, don't kill protesters or else we are locked and loaded, there are human rights groups claiming that more than 50 protesters have been killed in clashes with regime forces. The Ayatollah claims that he is not going to back down. The country has officially cut off internet, we understand, to try and stifle any of this information getting back to its people about the size and scale of what they're doing. And with that, we bring in Cameron Khansarinia as the Vice President of the National Union for Democracy in Iran. And Cameron, good to have you here. Your estimation, what do you know about what's happening on the ground in Iran, and how big is this moment?
Well, Rob, thank you very much for having me on, and thank you for covering this issue. This could be something that changes not only the face of Iran, but the Middle East and the entire world, and it's going to have massive implications for the United States, particularly if it goes the right way. As you said, it's about 2 weeks of nationwide protests that were sparked by the economic devastation that this regime of Neanderthals, as you put it, has wrought on Iran. Iran's a rich country, 90 million people, well-educated, a population pro-Western. But when you put a bunch of Islamic clerics in charge of it, it tends to go backwards. And unfortunately, Iran has gone backwards. What we've seen in the past 2 weeks is nationwide discontent with this regime that has grown into really a revolution against the entirety of the Islamic Republic. It's grown, these protests, particularly in the past 2 days, after a specific protest call was issued by Reza Pahlavi, the crown prince, for last night. And right at the moment, 8 p.m. Tehran time, when he issued that call, the internet was shut down. And reports that we're seeing, including from news agencies that go into Iran, millions of people are on the streets calling not only for an end to this regime, but for Reza Pahlavi, the crown prince, to return to Iran to lead the transitional government to democracy.
You would imagine, I mean, this is a country, this is the number one state sponsor of terrorism. Iran is, you know, the regime of Iran is a cancer on the entire world. We want to bring in Elica Le Bon, by the way, who's an attorney and also civil rights activist, joins us now. And Elica, good to have you here. Let's talk about, you know, this moment and the opportunity that is here, especially for if you're Israel. You got to be looking at this thinking, how can we facilitate finally ending this regime, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people are showing right now in the streets that they actually may not need the aid of Israel or anyone else right now to topple their regime. They seem to be going strong. Of course, we've heard these promises from Trump about, you know, intervening if it so comes that people start to be killed, which they have. And now we're just waiting to see whether Trump is going to make good on his word, because what is absolutely clear is that this revolution is inevitable at this point. The regime is going down. The question is not when, but how.
Yeah. And just, I got 1 second left, but is this as big of a moment as you've seen in years, decades? How long has it been since we've seen something like this, Cameron?
This is unprecedented, and I want to take this opportunity to appreciate President Trump's leadership. His promise to hold this regime to account if they start killing people is part of what's keeping the regime at bay. But now they've started killing people. They're trying to test the president. They're trying to test his resolve. And I don't think the president responds well to that. So these are unprecedented protests that can bring democracy to Iran and a new partner for peace in the Middle East and a new partner for business for the entire world. Iranians aren't just fighting for themselves. They're fighting to reshape the Middle East and bring a new partner to the West.
Cameron, Elica, thank you so much. We're going to follow this story. It's incredible what's happening right now. We appreciate it, guys. Thank you. All right, with Greenland and Venezuela at the top of the headlines this week, we hit the streets of New York to ask people about both of those very interesting topics, along with their reaction to the capture of dictator Nicolas Maduro.
Should we acquire Greenland? Let me think.
Red, white, and blue land.
Greenland, or the ice place, the icy place.
What y'all trying to do to it?
Tell him to keep his hands off of Greenland.
Something's not for sale. How do you acquire it?
What's really unfortunate about Greenland, the only thing is the indigenous people.
I think it's disgusting.
I think it's insane. We've lived hundreds of years with a perfectly good relationship with Denmark.
If Trump thinks we should have Greenland, yeah, we should have Greenland.
Strategically, military-wise, that would be a good idea.
Be like very like superior in the whole world and like in the region.
Will we move there?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
It's too cold.
Yeah, way too cold.
It's too damn cold.
It is cold.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Why not? It's too cold.
No, I wouldn't move to Greenland. No, I wouldn't. No, not me.
It looks like a good place to live at, but it's icy and cold.
And if it was affordable, I paid $1,400 for a tiny one-bedroom apartment, so I will be glad to move to Greenland.
No, I'm not going to move to Greenland. I'd visit. I've been to Denmark.
I'm here more because of Luigi Mangione.
Maduro, bad guy.
A terrible leader, illegitimate for Venezuela. However, it is not our place.
I'm not really sure if we as a country, as a different state, have the right to go and kidnap another sovereign state's leader.
It's an illegal act.
I support the capture. How we did it, illegal.
I think it was very amazing by President Trump because he gave this man a lot of warnings.
He effed around and he found out.
This guy decided to play with him, you know? And I like the way he was just so humble. And he was like, no, close up them cocaine shop you got there, brother. He doesn't understand when men are serious.
The Nike tag, I like this fit.
Immediately put him in the Nike tag.
I don't know much about the operation. Not very well informed, but I like the fit. I'm probably gonna get a Nike tag tonight.
The Nike tag does seem nice. That's all. Yeah, same with the Nike tag. I might get one tonight as well.
I trust Trump's judgment. Trump is trying to save this country. Imagine if these people were in charge now and they got in. Talking about walls. I mean, they wouldn't care about anything.
Such an interesting cast of characters in Lower Manhattan, right? All right, over a year later, barely any progress has been made on the Los Angeles fire rebuild. Dr. Michael Savage up next.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Drop is finally here. Drop delivers the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 injections in easy-to-use oral drops, no needles.
That's right. The 2 big drawbacks with weight loss injections are high costs in weekly injections. Drop is flavorless and odorless, so you can just add it to water or your favorite beverage. Drop offers other advantages over injections too. With Drop, you can personalize your dosage based on your weight loss goals.
And because you add Drop to any liquid, there's no concern about injection site infections, bruising, or dosage confusion.
Drop is the easier, safer, cost-effective alternative to help you achieve your weight loss goals without the needles.
Can't find it anywhere? The Wellness Company has it. No consultation needed. Simply order online and use promo code SLIM to save $100. Visit dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 5-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
When curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. See their stories before our sale ends.
Check their new game day fit. Oh, snap! DirecTV got hot.
That's right. DirecTV is flexing with all those pro and college games at your fingertips. This ain't your dad's cable, son. It's couture.
Okay, thank you so much. I was about to say that. It's couture.
I'm Arthur Lee, inventor and CEO of LifeVac. But most importantly, I'm a dad first.
Over 10 years ago, I watched my dad design and build the first LifeVac in our garage. Now, that device has saved thousands of lives.
The LifeVac saved my life in 1-2 seconds.
It's a device that saved my son's life.
A choking accident can happen anywhere. Order your LifeVac now.
Don't wait another minute. A life might depend on it. Go to lifevac.net or call 877-543-3822.
All right, it's been a little over a year now since the Palisades Altadena went up in flames in California. The dark blue state is a bureaucratic and regulatory nightmare, as we all know. Very little has been done a year later. Imagine living in this state and having these people in charge. CBS reporting construction has begun on just about 500 of the more than 16,000 structures lost. A year later, only 500, and they're only just they're doing foundation work. Gavin Newsom taking zero responsibility, blaming Trump, of course. Trump responding, calling him incompetent, saying that they also have a mayor in Los Angeles that likes to travel to Africa more than stay here because she was in Africa when this fire started. Absolutely unable to give people permits to rebuild their homes. All federal permits have been issued and received long ago, he says. It's not his fault. Dr. Michael Savage joins us now. So it's Trump's fault that only 500 houses have barely gotten under construction?
Come on, Rob. You know it's always Trump's fault. How could you even ask such a question? In fact, Trump was seen in the bushes with matches before the fire. So when I saw that this was the question, I said, you know, I have some opinions on the matter, but my friend Joel Pollack of Breitbart, who is now the opinion editor for the West Coast version of the New York Post, lived there and his house burned down. And I said, Joel, do you concur? Can I read you the text? It's interesting.
Sure.
I said, Joel, do you concur that the reason the Palisades have not been rebuilt is because Karen Bass wants the people gone, that she wants to replace the largely affluent white people with low-cost housing and or a park? So Joel said, well, maybe. He said the main reason is there are no votes for her there. Palisades is 75% Democratic, but listen to this, 2/3 of the Democrats voted for Caruso in 2022, not Bass. So this explains a little bit of the vendetta by Karen Bass. And then I say, what about Newsom? So he said to me, he ignores everyone. I said, doesn't he have control over this rebuilding? Doesn't he understand this is one of his greatest liabilities for his presidential run? He says, I don't know. I said, there could be another factor. That is, there is so much scrutiny on the Palisades and the rebuilding that they can't steal any more money. And then I learned this, Rob. I was shocked. The fire aid that's been given was largely stolen so far. I didn't know that. This is another scandal in the bonnet of this state, which is sad. I mean, I love the state. I live here. The money was largely stolen again and again and again, and nothing happens on the federal level.
That's
the whole
story
as I
with
could
every
tell.
pile of money in California. That's the homeless money. I mean, think about how much they lit on fire fighting homelessness. You've got, I mean, it's a sea of homeless in that state. Every single time they have a big project, it all just goes to administration, bureaucratic. It all gets siphoned away. It never gets to the source. And then they just tax you more. I mean, how much do they tax you now over there? 13% the state? It's
16 if you make more than $1 million a year, you're paying 16%. You pay a so-called millionaire's act.
And they're lighting it on fire or stealing it.
10 years ago, I called it the homeless industrial complex. And I kept asking, where are the hundreds of millions of dollars a year being spent on the so-called homeless in San Francisco? Where's it going? They're proliferating. They're not diminishing in numbers. Yeah. And I kept looking into it. And the more I looked into it, I realized it was being stolen by these homeless coalition types. Right. The good liberals, the do-gooders, just like in Minneapolis. The money has been siphoned off for the middle managers.
Doesn't surprise you. I mean, this is big government. This is the big government experience, and what they found in Minnesota. I can't wait till they do California. And when are they going to start throwing these people in prison? I got to leave it there. But I appreciate you.
Come on.
I know.
I had so much fun, and I got to go. Thanks, Rob. I love being here.
Dr. Savage, good to have you on. All right. During the 2024 presidential campaign, the president proposed a temporary cap on credit card interest rates at around 10%. Remember that? It sounded like a pretty good idea. 10%, the banks make good money. We save a lot if you got credit card debt. It was a populist policy backed by both sides of the aisle. Bernie Sanders liked it. Josh Hawley liked it. A paper published by Vanderbilt University claims it would save Americans $100 billion a year. But since the campaign, we have not heard much about this proposal. Collectively, Americans carry more than $1 trillion in credit card debt. Think about how much money that is. And then you're getting pegged at 25% a year on that number. It's crushing a lot of people. Dick Morris joins us now. Are they gonna bring this back? You know, this reminds me of what they're trying to do with housing right now. This is like, you know, hey, let's wrangle these banks under control and get some of that wealth back to the people.
I think we have a good chance of that happening. It's squarely in Trump's target range when he talks about affordability. These poor folks are paying 28.3% interest because on credit card debt they've racked up. And it's outrageous. The reason they're allowed to charge that much interest is they're not under California law, or any law, but they all claim we're really in Delaware. Even though they're national and they function in all 50 states. And Delaware makes its living because it's the only state that lets you do whatever you want. One of the big things in Biden's corruption. And it's time that the federal government step in and cap these rates at 10%. That's the huge impact on housing purchasing, on relieving homelessness. and basically making things affordable.
I think it would also drive a lot of money into the economy too. I think a lot of people that obviously people that have credit card debt are spenders. And if the interest they got to pay on that debt goes down, they're probably just going to continue to spend and put more on that card. So, I mean, it would probably be invigorating for that. And it's aligned with what he's trying to do with housing, not letting these big institutions buy up all these houses. Those are the ideas that I think bring a lot of people to vote for Trump. So I think following up on that is smart, especially before the midterms. Dick Morris, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
All right. A liberal woman having a personal crisis over how to mourn Renee Good in Minneapolis. That's up next in News from the Left.
So I feel like white tears are not always something that's helpful or necessary.
Pain doesn't just hurt, it limits you, and it keeps you from doing the things that matter most. I know because I've been there. I work hard, I'm active, and I love being with my family outdoors. But what I've noticed is that life never waits for the pain to disappear. So let's start the new year off with a Signal Relief patch. Take advantage of our 20% discount and get your patch today.
As a surgeon, if it can help decrease that pain, short-term or long-term, why not try it?
I absolutely recommend the Signal Relief patch for anybody going through, it could be anything.
I'm wearing a Signal Relief patch 24/7.
This Signal patch has literally changed my life.
When I put this patch on my ankle, I was getting relief.
In a recent study, 85% of people felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. We all hurt, whether it's our neck, back, knees, or shoulders. The fact is, the patch works.
Hi, Mom. I can't wait for you to hear well again, so I won't have to scream to tell you that I love you.
Now tell me if you can hear this. Hi, Mom.
It's not just your hearing. For us, it's your life. That's why we created the Miracle Ear Way, offering unlimited care, including risk-free trials and free servicing to keep you connected with your loved ones at all times. Book a free test. Call 1-800-339-5811.
WSOP presents the NFL Poker Experience. Rep your team. Compete in exciting NFL tournaments and win exclusive NFL Poker Championship rings. Download the WSOP free-to-play app for a chance to win $1,000 towards your favorite team merchandise.
When Balance of Nature came out, patients began asking me about it. Hey, doc, have you tried this? So I tried it, and it's been a great experience.
I've been taking Balance of Nature for at least 3-4 years now.
It's fruits and vegetables in our daily diet, and an obtainable way to get that every day without fail.
Balance of Nature, you smell it and it's real. It smells like fruits and vegetables.
I know that you need a balance of fruits and vegetables. I mean, my grandma told me that, my mom told me that. What's there to lose in taking Balance of Nature?
I really wish I started taking Balance of Nature much sooner.
I trust Balance of Nature because I trust the simplicity of what it is.
This new year only, get 50% off for 1 year when you subscribe to the Whole Health System as a preferred customer. Put aside the complicated resolutions. Join hundreds of thousands of customers in one simple routine that's sweeping the nation. Go to balanceofnature.com and lock in your low price today.
Welcome back. Time now for News from the Left. A raw look at the kind of people that we are dealing with at these various anti-ICE protests, these agitators, and then the people that are coming in to mourn afterwards. The Daily Wire interviewing a white liberal woman who's having a bit of a personal crisis over exactly how to mourn Renee Good in Minneapolis. Take a listen.
It feels kind of wrong being here in some way. I don't know, where that stems from. I mean, part of it is being like a white woman, that I'm privileged and I have a lot of privilege. So I feel like white tears are not always something that's helpful or necessary when black and brown people have been experiencing this for a long time. This isn't new for them, and so...
Mother of God. We have over-evolved. Imagine dropping her into the jungle and she has to fend for her own self and find food and shelter. That's a scary thought. Next up, Joy Behar making everybody wonder once again how The View is even allowed to be on television, questioning if America is in the midst of a fascist dictatorship. Take a look.
1 week, Pete Hegseth started an illegal war for oil in Venezuela. Right. Stephen Miller threatened a military takeover of Greenland. RFK Jr. slashed childhood vaccine recommendations, and ICE shot and killed a United States citizen in Minneapolis. Yeah. That sort of adds up to me like a dictatorship in the making.
When The View was created, it was just supposed to be like nonsensical musings for housewives to watch while they're sitting at home all day while the kids are in school. And now it's morphed into these same nonsensical people sitting there pretending that they know anything about politics or anything about the world. And the fact that this is on ABC, again, federally regulated, it's not supposed to be this partisan, yet it is just propaganda all day long for the militant left in this country. And in response to Joy Behar, we arrested a criminal in Venezuela and are in the process of liberating 30 million people, not that you care. We're purchasing Greenland in order to protect the West from Russia, a country that Joy Behar claims owns our president, by the way. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is trying to solve an autism crisis that's just magnified to a terrible extent that your side pretends doesn't even exist. And an ICE officer shot a deranged lunatic after she nearly ran him over. So that's the actual correct interpretation of the 4 stories that you just mentioned. And finally tonight, as Marjorie Taylor Greene simps for The View and CNN these days, trying to stay relevant, the relationship between Greene and Trump has gotten so toxic that Axios reports the White House has contacted Secret Service about her. Sources say the White House told Secret Service that Greene may have been the one that tipped off those Code Pink protesters about his surprise visit last fall to a D.C. restaurant that she recommended. Trump opting to eat at Joe's Seafood Prime Steak and Stone Crab, which is about a block from the White House. Great restaurant. He was ambushed there, if you remember the video, when a member of the far-left group gathered around his table chanting, "Free D.C., free Palestine, Trump is the Hitler of our time." Remember that video? Marjorie angrily denying it, saying they're mad at me for telling the truth about the president and forcing the release of the Epstein files, and now they're making up horrific lies about me, saying she's calling her attorney and calling it an absolute lie that she's the one that tipped off those protesters to basically ambush the president that night right after he started cleaning up Washington, D.C. All right, up next, a hilarious moment from today's big oil meeting.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
You're careful about what you bring home when shopping, especially when it comes to feeding your family. Shouldn't your investments work the same way? At Timothy Plan, we offer a wide selection of mutual funds and ETFs that can help you allocate assets without compromising your values. From technology to healthcare, energy to real estate, our funds are not only diverse but uncompromising to your values. Timothy Plan funds are filtered to avoid companies involved in abortion, pornography, human trafficking, and other harmful agendas. What you invest in should reflect what you stand for. Are your investments bearing good fruit? What's in your portfolio? Contact your financial advisor today to find out, or contact Timothy Plan directly at 1-800-TIM-PLAN to discover more. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Affordable dentures and implants just got even more affordable.
I saw you strolling down the lane.
Schedule your free consultation at affordabledentures.com or call 1-800-DENTURE today.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
And finally tonight, a hilarious moment from the president earlier while meeting with all these oil executives at the White House, all the media in the room, and the big ballroom. It was something else. Trump taking a moment out of that roundtable event, standing up to peek at construction of his new ballroom as everybody just watched on. It's pretty good. Take a look.
I got to look at this myself. What a view. This is the door to the ballroom. What did you... Unusual time to look, but I figure we might as well do it. If the fake news would like to go back and take a look, you can.
Unusual time to look. The moments that you only have with this guy. That's good stuff. Trump also asked about, if you can see it right on his lapel, a new pen that he has right underneath the American flag. Take a look.
Do you know what that is? That's called a happy Trump. And considering the fact that I'm never happy, I'm never satisfied, I will never be satisfied until we make America great again, but we're getting pretty close, I'll tell you what. This is called a happy Trump. Somebody gave it to me, I put it on.
The happy Trump. All right, we'll leave you with that on a Friday night. Have a good weekend. Fitterty's up next. We'll see you back here on Monday.
Good evening. Welcome back to Finnerty. Glad you're here live. Newsmax, 8 p.m. on a Friday night. I'm Rob Finnerty. Hello, sports fans. I used to work in sports. People don't know that about me. I started my career in sports, so I've got a knack for athletics and sports. There is something about the first week of January. It always just feels like the longest week of the year, and this week was no different. Just a long, long week. I'm not going to mail it in. Okay, I don't work at the post office, but it feels like that. But we're going to have a heck of a telecast tonight, so let's get going. What did we